at your shelter, either somebody wins the lottery or you get a grant for $1 million to train your shelter dogs. And you hire a team of the United States' most finest trainers. And all the dogs are held before they go up for adoption. And every single dog gets 2 weeks, as many times a day as these people are full-time, as many times a day as possible, 2 full weeks of training, full obedience training before they go up for adoption. And they go up for adoption. Okay? So let's say you've done that at your shelter because you have all this money and you hired all these trainers. And then so you put the dogs up for adoption. They have a big gold star on their card cage, and it says, "I have been professionally obedience trained by one of the country's finest trainers." And then the Smiths come in to look at the adoption dogs, and they go around and they see there's this beagle mix, adolescent male dog. And they look at him in the cage, and the dog looks at them in that connecting kind of social way, and they're like, "We would like to see this dog, out of the kennels." And you say, "Well, that is very exciting, and that's a mighty fine choice because we got this new grant, and this dog has been professionally obedience trained by one of the country's finest, and he's had 2 full weeks of training." And the family's like, "Wow, well, that's very exciting. We'd really like to meet him." So you stick the dog, who's 50 pounds, on a leash, and you bring him out to the get acquainted room, and you hand the leash and the dog to Mrs. Smith. And how does the dog behave? Completely out of control and untrained. Why? Right? He learned how to do it for the trainer, but he doesn't know. You didn't say anything to Mrs. Smith. She's just holding the end of the leash. And he's still an adolescent, right? So he's just doing everything he does. What do the Smiths think of this dog that's been professionally obedience trained by the country's finest? There's no way. They think, wow, if this is how he is after training by the country's best. Okay. So you think, oh, yeah, what a waste of money. We got all these trainers now, and this is just not going so well. What's missing? Got to train the Smiths. Okay, so you say, look, we still have $800,000 left. We're going to have the trainers work 7 days a week. And anytime somebody wants to look at one of the dogs, we're going to have the trainer do a demo so that the Smiths can watch through a little glass window. And then we're going to have the trainer show the Smiths, give them a 1-hour transfer lesson. So the Smiths go through and they see the big beagle mix and they're interested in adopting him. And you say, well, that's just dandy. We have a new program, 2 weeks fully obedience trained. Smiths are now very excited and they say, that sounds great. So the trainer comes in and she takes the dog and she shows everything. He heels, he sits, he stays, he leaves it, he lies down, he comes, the whole thing. And the Smiths are watching through the plate glass and they're like, wow, that's remarkable. What a smart dog. And the trainer comes out with the dog, and the trainer is going to start teaching the Smiths. And so here's the problem. When the trainer hands the leash and the dog to Mrs. Smith, and she says, this is how I want you to hold the leash, and I want you to use your voice, and these are the commands the dog knows. Whom is the dog looking to? The trainer. And it looks at the trainer adoringly with all sorts of attention, right? And Mrs. Smith looks down and she goes, oh, well, the dog certainly loves you, doesn't he? And you go, or the trainer says, well, yes, but that's because I've trained him and I have a relationship with him and he'll look at you just the same way. He just has to bond to you. But it never does any good, does it? You ever had your favorite dog at the shelter and it's all bonded to you and the people come to see it and you hand them the leash and it just has eyes for you? And you can say all you want that this is how it'll bond to them. It's just bonded to you because you know it, that's all. But they never pick that dog, do they? Do you know why they don't ever pick the dog? How many of you have actually been in a shelter or gone to a shelter and come home with a dog that you adopted? How many have physically gone in there? And when you went to a shelter and came out with a dog, did you go in with a list of all your criteria of what you need and what the best thing in a dog is for you, and then you came out with that recipe all matched? Or did you go in not even thinking you were looking for a dog and come out with a dog because you fell in love? Why did you fall in love? Why did you pick the certain dog you picked? Okay, so you're going to lure, until the dog's getting into the position each time successfully like butter and fast. And then you're going to give him a pop exam, a quiz. So here he is. I'm going to raise it up. He puts his butt down. I'm going to lure him into a stand. And then I'm going to do it again. I feed him. I lure him up. I lure him and I feed him. I'm going to bring him forward. I lure him up. It's getting a little faster, right, and easier. Oh. Now, he knew how to do it from lying down. And why did he learn so quickly? Because he knew how to learn. Don't be rolling your eyes. He knew how to lie down on that count because they taught him how. But let's say I'm Wendy, the new Monday volunteer, and I just started at the Naperville Humane Society. And I know she's not going to fall off, don't worry. So didn't the dog just tell me what she knew? I didn't have to ask anyone, right? They didn't have to record it in the logbook. She just said to me, oh, I know how to sit already. So now what I want to know, good girl. What I want to know is she used to Mrs. Smith? How about Mr. Smith? She could get more used to Mr. Smith. Ow. And then I'm like, how about down? You know how to lie down? No, she doesn't. So then Wendy, the Monday volunteer, says, okay, come here then, the nice profile for the nice people. And I don't mind waiting, because it's this process in her that'll help her in the shelter, not the fact that I get her to sit. So I'm going to give the hand signal. I'm going to lure her into the down by trying to save my fingers. All right, so I'm just going to wait her out till she sits. And she doesn't know how to sit when somebody's squatting, right? That's a whole actually new thing for her.